Here is another beautiful book called Critical Thinking. It's written by Richard Paul and Linda Elders. I found it interesting from that perspective that he'll ask you a couple of questions and he'll say, let's find out what level of thinking you perform. So we all like to talk about how smart we are, or how other people are not smart, and how some people are thinking, others are not thinking. We tend to be egoistic about our own thoughts at times. So he says that critical thinking is not something you add into everything else. It is the way you do everything. It is the way you question everything in your life. And it applies to all aspects of your life. So he gives certain traits of a disciplined mind, like integrity, intellectual integrity, humility, sense of justice, perseverance, fair-mindedness, intellectual confidence, intellectual courage, intellectual empathy, intellectual autonomy. And then he gives details about each of these fair-minded traits of a thinker, traits of a fair-minded thinker. And then he starts asking questions about where you stand as a thinker. He gives a very simple analogy and he says, your thinking, he provides a simple schematic that shows thinking, feeling, and wanting. So these are the three components of thinking. And what level of thinker are you? So the first stage is unreflective thinker, the second stage is a challenged thinker, the third stage is a beginning thinker, the fourth stage is a practicing thinker, and the fifth stage is the advanced thinker. Finally, the sixth stage is a master thinker, and he gives definitions for each of these thinkers. And to understand what level of thinker you are, he asks 9 different questions, some of which are, can you describe the role that thinking is playing in your life? Be as clear and detailed as possible. Number 2, what is a recent assumption you have made that you should not have made? Can you answer that? 3, what is a recent concept you formed that you previously lacked? 4, list 5 inferences you made in the last hour. Number 5, name and explain a point of view that you sometimes use to guide your thinking. 6, briefly describe how you analyze and assess thinking. 7, name some intellectual standards you use. Explain how you apply them. Number 8, explain the role of egocentric thinking in your life. Number 9, take 1 or 2 intellectual traits and explain what you are doing to try to embody them. It's a great exercise that I perform for myself to see where I stand as a thinker. And then he starts to explain that, of course, he did not explain he did explain what a stage 1 unreflective thinker is, and stage 2, the challenged thinker. Then there's just a fair number of examples that he has peppered this book with when he's explaining each of the stages of thinking. Another exercise he mentions is try to figure out to what extent and in what ways your thinking has been influenced by factors: your culture, your family, your personal history, your colleagues, your supervisors, and try to imagine how your thinking might be different if you had been born in a different culture. So he provides certain exercises. And he mentions that stage 4, but if you reach stage 4, you might start to see it as a game, that just like tennis or basketball or any other game that can be practiced, so can thinking be practiced if you consciously become aware of your own thoughts. A very critical diagram that he provides in the initial chapters is what he calls the first order of thinking and the second order of thinking. So the first order of thinking is spontaneous, non-reflective. It contains insights, prejudice, truth, error, good and bad reasoning, indiscriminately combined. The second order of thinking is first order thinking raised to the level of conscious realization, analyzed, assessed, and reconstructed. So that is where he's trying to drive at most of the time, whether or not we are questioning our own thoughts. Are we questioning our own assumptions? Are we aware of our assumptions? Are we aware of our inferences, our belief systems? So as a practice, he says, try to do some of the following things. Ask yourself these following questions